When my daughter was born, I was so exhausted and so sleep deprived that I hallucinated for the first time in my life, just full on thinking that I was sleeping, awake, I didn't know, seeing things, and like sometimes just be happening as you're like rocking a baby, which is terrifying. And it was in the midst of that I realized I desperately needed some kind of creative outlet, because that stage of parenting is rough. You are in the pits of it, just holding on by your fingernails. And this may sound stupid, and maybe it was, but I decided to write a science fiction novel, a big one. And I'm going to talk about why that was actually a great idea and how I applied Atomic Habits to actually make it work.
How you coming on that novel you working on? Huh? Got a big stack of papers there?
So why did I write a book? Well, I'm an animator, and I always have outlets like animated shorts or film shorts. I like to tell stories. I love it. I don't really care the format, I just love stories. And so I knew that I wasn't going to be able to animate the time chunks you need to make animation works were too big. I wasn't going to be able to film stuff because that's too much setup. It just wasn't going to work for newborn situation. And so I thought, I've had plenty of stories accumulate that I had just set aside because they were too big to animate. They were just, who's got the time when you're doing it by yourself or with a few people? And so I went through those stories, put some of the ideas together that I liked the most, and decided I was gonna write a book. And the Atomic Habits way I applied that was just thinking one sentence a day, write a book, one sentence. And that may seem tricky, like, well, how can you write a book one sentence at a time? Like, how do you hold it in your head? But when you're writing a book, you're churning on it throughout the day, like you're thinking about it. And when you get to the end of the day and maybe you just need sleep and you don't have time to write, but you know where you're going, hopefully, and you can write that sentence. And some days you might get more. Some days you might get a few hundred words. Some days you might get a whole page or two, and that's great. But as long as I was making progress on that one sentence, I was making progress. I think writing a book was also appealing because there's a certain freedom in ignorance. Like, I know too much about animation. I know too much about how hard it is. But with a book, I'd never written a book before, and I knew it was going to be hard, but I didn't know the details of how it was going to be hard, and that kind of makes it easier to get started. If you know how hard something's going to be from the get-go, it can make you pause and think twice, and that's not necessarily helpful. Sometimes it's better to just do and figure out as you go, and that's very much what I did. And so 9 months later, I had a draft, and that worked. The aspects of applying Atomic Habits that really worked for me was that one sentence a day goal. You set a goal and make it small, make it smaller than you think it should be. Set a tiny goal and hope for more. It's fine to hope for more. My internal hope on any given day was that I could hit 500 words. And I did that a fair amount of the time, but there was a lot of the time when it was that one sentence, and that was okay. But if you set a big goal and then you miss it, even if you got something done, even if you made progress, you're still gonna feel like you failed. It's not true, but you're gonna feel that way. But if you set that one sentence goal, you can't fail at that, or it's a whole lot harder. And then anything else just feels like a bonus. But either way, you are making progress, and it is progress, consistent progress, that will get you through. It's not about the amount, it's the consistency, because that adds up like compound interest, and it's a miracle to just watch it work as weeks go by and you feel like you've got nothing done on a daily basis, but you look back and it's like, holy cow, the pages have added up. And that was a payoff as I went. There was a problem though, because the benefit of the drawing every day was that you had a finished thing every day. Start, finish, start, finish, start, finish. And that progress is fantastic. But when it's a book, it's like start, long chunk of time later, finish. And so you don't get that same loop. You could break it down to chapters and stuff, but it's not the same as having a finished art piece, because It takes a long time. It just does. And so I modified things slightly, and I decided that I was going to write short stories by hand, like handwritten, in my case on my super note. You do it on a notebook, as I was going along and doing my book. And I would tie that in that if I made progress on one of those two things, it would be considered progress. Because there would be some days where it would be the end of the day, laying down in bed, I wouldn't have time to get to the computer, but I could pull out the notebook and I could write a sentence in that. And so I would make progress with the short stories, and those would finish faster than the main story. And so Saul's Ladder was always making progress, but my short stories were making progress at the same time. And it didn't feel like one was taking away from the other. A mistake I did make though after that first draft was I took a break. I took a break and I went and started to write another bigger book. And I don't regret it because I learned I learned a lot in that process too, but it very much slowed down my progress on Saul's Ladder. And what probably could have been finished in 2 years took 3.
Got a nice little story you're working on there, the big novel you've been working on for 3 years, yeah?
And so that was a big lesson that I won't repeat that mistake again. I think it's important to maintain that momentum, even if it's not the only thing you work on, even if you allow other things like the short stories at the same time. I think it's really important to always be making progress on that main thing, because that's the whole goal, is building up that momentum. You don't want to lose that, and I lost momentum. Thankfully I got it back, and lo and behold, I have the proof. It's done. It's a finished real thing. This is proof to me that progress, momentum, atomic habits, all these things work. I have it in my hands, like it got out of my brain and into the real world, and that's amazing. I think my final takeaway, having finished the book, is that I can't imagine doing any creative project on my own without taking this approach, without taking an atomic habits approach, without building up that momentum, making daily progress no matter what the day looks like, by keeping tiny chunks and letting that take the pressure off. Letting that take the pressure off. Oh, I didn't have hours to commit, because life changes. Different seasons in life are different. If you go from being single to married, that's going to change. If you go from being married to a family, that's going to change again, and your windows of time get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then life flows back, and you'll have different seasons where suddenly you have more time again as kids get older or whatever. But I think what's so great about this approach is you can apply it in any season of life, and it works just the same. If you can apply, spend more time on a project, great, lucky you. If you can't, it's okay, you're still making progress. And that to me is the really encouraging aspect of this, because it's not just a hustle you can do when you have tons of time to devote to it. This is something that can feel like joyful progress, because it's so consistent and yet there's so little pressure put on it. And I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that was my experience in that. And I get to enjoy the fact that this is coming out on Sunday, June 1st. And so if you're watching this after that, you can go buy it right now. If not, you can pre-order it if you're interested. And I'll talk more about this later, and I'm actually working on a book trailer for this right now to tie back in my animation skills and get to visualize some of the things I've been writing about. But yeah, if you like this video, if it was helpful, give a like, and I would challenge you to take whatever project's at the top of your mind, whatever it is, whether it's a book or drawing or whatever it is, maybe something you've been kicking down the road, and take an atomic habits approach, daily little goals, and do it for 40 days. Just 40 days, that's hardly anything. Depending on what you're doing, it might just be 5 minutes a day. Do it for 40 days, and then look back and see the progress you've made, and come back and comment, if you will. Like, I'm super curious to see, is this just me that it works particularly well for, or does this work well for all personality types? But yeah, best of luck in your creative endeavors, and yeah, check out Saul's Ladder on June 1st. Thanks.
At the end, your main character is richer for the experience? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, you got to... No, you deserve some time off.